The envelope showed up on a Tuesday. And I remember that detail clearly because Tuesdays were supposed to be my easy days. Just 2 property showings and some paperwork before lunch. I grabbed my mail on the way up to my apartment. Flipping through the usual pile of nothing. A credit card offer. A flyer from the pharmacy. Then I saw it. Heavy cream-colored paper. A law office return address. Callahan and Reeves. Estate attorneys. My heart started pounding before I even opened it. This was it. Grandma's trust. The one my parents had controlled since I turned 18. The one they swore, over and over, would finally be mine in full once I turned 28. My birthday had passed 3 weeks earlier, and now here it was, sitting in my hands. Freedom. Delivered by mail. I barely made it through my front door before I tore the envelope open. A check slid out first. I caught it, turned it over, and felt the floor drop out from under me. $2,140.16. I stared at the number, blinked, read it again. That could not be right. Grandma had opened this trust the day I was born. I remembered overhearing my parents talk about it once when I was little. Something about a life insurance payout and years of careful investing. I never knew the exact number, but they always made it sound like it would change my life. Enough to set me up after college. Enough to matter. My hands shook as I unfolded the letter that came with it. Dear Miss Calloway, per the terms of the Eleanor Grace Calloway Memorial Trust, you have now reached the age of majority distribution. Enclosed is the final disbursement of the remaining principal. Remaining principal. Those 2 words blurred in front of me. I grabbed the second page. A financial statement dense, with line items that made my stomach turn. But certain phrases jumped out like warning signs on a dark road. Administrative management fees. $7,200 annually. Expense reimbursements. $11,000. Average annual trustee compensation. $12,500. 10 years of this. 10 years of fees for a job nobody asked them to be paid for. 10 years of reimbursements for expenses I never authorized and never even knew existed. Travel costs. Consulting fees. Something labeled simply as administrative overhead. I did the math in my head. The same way I calculate square footage and closing costs for a living. Somewhere between $90,000 and $110,000 had been quietly drained from my inheritance. Legally. Because they were the trustees, and I had been too afraid, for too long, to ever ask a real question about where the money went. If you've ever had a trusted family member manage something on your behalf, you already know where this is going. Keep that feeling in your chest. We're going to need it. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Sweetie, did your check arrive? Don't spend it all in one place. Lol. Little check. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. Instead, I sank onto my couch, that pathetic little check still in my fist, and let the memories come flooding back, one after another, like a dam finally breaking. I was 16 the summer my father came home with brochures for a beach resort in Florida, spreading them across the table with the biggest grin I'd ever seen. My older sister Marisol screamed and hugged him. My mother was already planning outfits. I asked, what about me? My father didn't even look up. The room's only big enough for the 3 of us. Kiddo. You understand, right? I nodded. I always nodded. They left me with my Aunt Ruth for the week, watching my 6-year-old cousin Josie while my Uncle Walt worked double shifts. When my parents came home tanned and laughing, they handed me a single souvenir keychain. Marisol came home with a suitcase of new clothes and a photo album. Months later, I found the actual hotel reservation by accident. Standard room. 4-person occupancy. The room had never been too small. They simply hadn't wanted me there. Then came college. I worked 2 jobs. Campus library by day. Waitressing by night. To cover what my scholarships didn't. My parents said the trust was locked until graduation. That I needed to learn the value of hard work. Marisol got her tuition paid outright. plus an allowance, a car, and a laptop. The night I graduated, I walked across that stage completely alone. My parents texted that morning. Something came up. We'll celebrate next time. I later learned something was a trip to Europe for Marisol's engagement. They raised champagne glasses in Paris while I ate cold pizza in an empty dorm room, packing 4 years of my life into boxes. It took 6 years to pay off my student loans after that. 6 years in a studio the size of a parking space, driving a car, held together by hope, eating instant noodles more nights than I'd like to admit. I made my final payment 8 months ago and remember standing in that bank line, finally able to breathe, and the entire time, my parents had been quietly draining my trust fund, billing it for their own management, turning what my grandmother left for me into their personal safety net. The worst part was that some part of me had always known something was wrong. Once, when I was 22 and desperate, barely making rent, I called my father and asked if there was any way to access even a small portion early, just a loan against my own money. His voice went cold instantly. You want to know what happens to ungrateful children who question their parents? I'm the trustee. Ren. That means I can petition the court to freeze those funds if I have any concerns about your judgment. Keep pushing me, and you won't see a cent until you're 50. If ever. I apologized. I actually apologized for asking about my own inheritance. After that call, I learned to stay quiet, smile, nod, accept the crumbs, and never, ever ask for more. This is the part that hurts to say out loud. So many of us have been trained to apologize for our own boundaries. If that sentence hit close to home, you are not alone, and it is not your fault. But now his leverage was gone. The trust was closed. The check, sad as it was, sat in my hand. And there was nothing left for him to hold over me. My phone buzzed again. A notification. This time from a distant cousin who had posted a new photo album titled Family Getaway. I opened it out of morbid curiosity. There they all were. My father, my mother, and Marisol, lounging on a white sand beach with drinks in hand. Turquoise water behind them. The caption read, "Island vibes with the Callaways. Living our best life. Turks and Caicos. A 5-star resort. Right now, while I sat here holding what was left of my grandmother's legacy, they had left me behind again. Only this time, they had used my own money to do it. I stared at that photo until my eyes burned, then closed the app and deleted the notification. $2,140.16. That was what my grandmother's love was worth to them. Apparently, that was what I was worth to them. 2. Take a breath here with me. It's about to get better. But first it gets worse. I almost didn't go to my Aunt Ruth's that night. We had a standing dinner plan. Once a month. Nothing fancy. I felt raw and hollow. The last thing I wanted was to sit at a table and pretend to be fine. But the thought of staying home alone with that check on my coffee table was worse. So I went. Aunt Ruth lived 40 minutes outside the city, in a neighborhood with small houses and big yards. My Uncle Walt's old pickup truck was already in the driveway, the bed full of tools from whatever job site he'd come from. The door opened before I could even knock. "There's my girl," Aunt Ruth said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like rosemary and warm bread. She was barely 5'3", but her hugs made you feel like nothing in the world could touch you. Dinner was simple. Pan-seared chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans from their garden. Nothing photogenic, nothing fancy. Just food made with care and shared at a table that had hosted decades of real family dinners. Uncle Walt served the plates, studying each piece of chicken carefully before setting the best one. The biggest, juiciest cut. In front of me. "That one's yours," he said simply, like it was obvious. Something cracked open in my chest right there at that table. I looked down at that plate, at the quiet care behind such a small gesture, and my phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification from my banking app. A commission payment had just cleared. $61,000. From the Ridgemont commercial property deal I had been chasing for 3 months. $61,000. Nearly 30 times what my parents had left me from my grandmother's trust. I looked at Uncle Walt. At Aunt Ruth. At the mismatched chairs and the worn tablecloth and the single best piece of chicken that had been chosen just for me. And something clicked into place. I had spent almost 30 years believing family had to mean blood. That love was something you had to earn from the people who raised you, no matter how they treated you. But family isn't blood. Family is the person who gives you the best piece of the meal. Family is the woman who hugs you before you even knock. Family is the people who show up. Consistently, without conditions attached. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid anymore. That feeling of peace never lasts as long as we want it to. Does it? Stay with me. The calm lasted exactly 3 days before my phone rang and shattered it completely. I was leaving a property showing when my mother's name lit up the screen. I almost let it go to voicemail. Old habits die hard. Though, and some trained part of me still jumped when she called. Hi. Mom. Ren. Sweetheart. That sugar-sweet tone. The one she used when she wanted something. We've been thinking about you so much. We're planning a family trip to the mountains for Christmas. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Skiing? Hot chocolate by the fire. Real bonding time. Real bonding time. Just like the beach trip. Just like Paris. I don't know. Mom. Work's been busy. Oh. But you have to come. Marisol specifically asked for you. Ali. Probably closer to who's going to watch the baby while I'm at the spa. Then came the real reason for the call. We're renting a beautiful cabin. And it's only fair everyone chips in. We'll need you to wire $1,500 by Friday. Also, Marisol's been invited to some evening events at the resort. So we'll need someone to watch little Nora at night. You're so good with kids. It'll just be a few hours here and there. There it was. $1,500 plus free childcare. Not a daughter. An ATM with a babysitting certificate attached. So, can we count on you? Something inside me finally, quietly snapped. No. 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 Mum. I'm not coming to the mountains. I'm not wiring you money. And I'm not babysitting. Ren Elise Calloway. I saw your cousin's photos from the beach. By the way, looked like you had fun spending Grandma's trust on umbrella drinks. Her sharp intake of breath told me the shot landed. How dare you? That money covered legitimate administrative costs. Funny how those costs paid for a 5-star resort while I ate instant noodles and worked 2 jobs to pay off my loans. You ungrateful. I hung up. My hands were shaking. But not from fear this time. From adrenaline. From the sheer relief of finally standing up for myself. The phone rang again immediately. I declined it. It rang again. I declined it again. A text came through. Times your father is going to hear about this disrespect. I blocked her number. Then my father's. Then my sister's. I stood in that parking lot breathing hard. Feeling like I had just stepped off a cliff. But I wasn't falling. I was flying. Sometimes the bravest thing you can say is the shortest word in the language. If you've ever had to say no to someone who raised you, you already know exactly what that moment feels like. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about how my parents would never see me as anything but a resource. Useful when convenient. Invisible when not. No amount of bending myself into a smaller, quieter shape would ever earn the love I wanted from them. But I had $61,000 sitting in my account. I had close to 500,000 travel points I had been hoarding for years, saving them for someday. And I had people who already deserved to be treated like family. An idea started forming. Petty. Maybe. But also completely. Beautifully justified. If my parents wanted to show their values through money, fine. I would show mine. 2. I spent the next morning researching flights and resorts. My travel points could cover airfare for 4 people round trip to somewhere unforgettable. Somewhere my parents had probably fantasized about but never spent their own money to visit. Bora Bora kept coming up. Overwater bungalows. Water so clear, it looked painted. The kind of place you only ever saw in magazine spreads. I found a 2-bedroom overwater villa with a private deck. Perfect for Josie, who would have loved the extra space. $19,000 for the week. All inclusive. With my commission. Tight, but doable. I could actually afford it. I booked it. 4 round-trip tickets. 1 luxury villa. 7 nights. The most money I had ever spent at once in my entire life. It felt incredible. I showed up at Aunt Ruth's house that evening unannounced. Laptop tucked under my arm. Uncle Walt opened the door. Surprised to see me on the wrong night. "Everyone home?" I asked. "I need to talk to all of you." We gathered in the living room. Aunt Ruth on the couch. Uncle Walt in his recliner. Josie cross-legged on the floor with her phone in hand as usual. I took a breath and told them everything. The call with my mother. The word no. The block button. Then I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward them. I closed a huge commission this week. And I've had a stack of travel points sitting around for years. So I did something a little impulsive. I booked us a trip. The 4 of us. Bora Bora. Overwater villa. 7 days. We leave in 2 weeks. Silence. Aunt Ruth's hand flew to her mouth. Uncle Walt just stared. His usually calm face completely blank. Josie shot to her feet. "Are you serious, Bora Bora, the actual Bora Bora? You didn't have to do this," Uncle Walt said, his voice rough. "I know. I wanted to. You've been my family when my own blood couldn't be bothered. This isn't charity. This is a thank you." Aunt Ruth touched my face gently. Tears in her eyes. "Your grandmother would be so proud of you." This is the part of the story where things start to feel earned instead of given. Notice the difference in how it lands. Arriving in Bora Bora felt less like travel and more like stepping into a different world entirely. The water was impossibly clear. The villa sat on stilts above the reef. And glass panels in the living room floor revealed fish swimming beneath our feet. Josie filmed everything. Uncle Walt sat with an actual paperback novel he'd bought at the airport. Something I had never once seen him do. Aunt Ruth cried 3 separate times, insisting each time they were happy tears. Was snorkeled over coral reefs. Ate fresh seafood. Watched the sunset every night. Josie posted constantly. And one clip where she explained our whole story to the camera exploded overnight. By morning, it had 500,000 views. By evening, it had passed 2 million. My phone, which I had left on only for emergencies, started melting down. Dozens of missed calls. Hundreds of messages. Old classmates. Co-workers. Strangers who somehow had my number. And then, an email that stopped me cold. Subject line Times, contract termination. It was addressed to Marisol. Forwarded to me with a string of furious accusations. A skincare brand she had partnered with for a monthly sponsorship had terminated the agreement, citing a clause about public image and brand alignment following the viral attention. Her forwarded message to me was unhinged with rage, blaming me entirely for costing her the deal. I read it once, then closed my phone and ordered another drink. Karma doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it just quietly cancels a sponsorship deal while you're on vacation. On day 5, Josie ran onto the deck pale-faced, phone in hand. My sister had posted her own video, professionally lit, voice trembling with performed emotion, accusing me of manipulating and betraying the family. She played clips of old conversations, cut and edited to sound far worse than they actually were. Then, worst of all, she posted my home address in her caption, inviting her followers to let me know what they thought. Threatening messages poured in. I blocked what I could and handed my phone to Uncle Walt. "Can you hold this? I don't want to look at it anymore." "Done." he said simply. No lecture. No question. Just support. That night at dinner, fresh grilled fish under string lights. I barely tasted my food. Aunt Ruth reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You okay? Honey, I will be, I said. And I meant it. Because my sister could post whatever she wanted. She could send her followers after me. But I was sitting in an overwater villa surrounded by people who genuinely loved me, while she sat at home watching her income disappear. I didn't need revenge. Karma was handling that part just fine. The flight home was long and exhausting. Uncle Walt drove us all back into the city, dropping Aunt Ruth and Josie off first. Then it was just the two of us for the final stretch to my apartment. My phone had been off for most of the trip, but during a layover I had turned it back on just long enough to see one message from my father. Times. You've embarrassed this family for the last time. We're coming to collect what you owe us. I showed it to Uncle Walt. He read it without expression and said, I'm staying with you tonight. I didn't argue. They showed up at my door just before 9 that evening. Not knocking. Pounding. I checked my doorbell camera and saw all three of them. My father red-faced. My mother arms crossed and cold. My sister recording everything on her phone. I used the intercom. I can see you on camera. This is being recorded. Leave now. We're your parents. Open this door. My father shouted, kicking it hard enough to rattle the frame. Before I could stop him, Uncle Walt was already at the door, unlocking it and stepping into the frame. All 6'4" of him filling the doorway like a wall. My father's rage drained instantly into something I had never seen on his face before. Fear. This doesn't concern you, my father said, his voice suddenly smaller. Your daughter is standing behind me, terrified. That concerns me very much. Uncle Walt's voice never rose. It didn't need to. You have 5 seconds to leave this property. Are we clear? They left. My sister screamed threats about lawsuits the whole way down the stairs. But they left. That night, we called the police to file an official report using the doorbell footage. An officer looked at me kindly and said something I've thought about every day since. This kind of escalation doesn't stop on its own. You're building a paper trail now. Every violation makes their case worse and yours stronger. If anyone reading this is dealing with something similar, please know that documentation is your quiet superpower. Screenshots, footage, dates and times. It matters more than you think. The following weekend, everything came to a head at the worst possible moment. I was hosting an open house for a $3 million luxury listing. The biggest of my career so far. 20 guests. Catering. Hired security. Everything perfect. Then, at the exact wrong moment, 2 women slipped past the check-in table wearing sunglasses and sun hats. Registered under fake names. It was my mother and my sister. There she is, my sister announced loudly. Phone raised. Streaming live. That's the thief I told you about. My mother swayed dramatically and collapsed onto a staged sofa, hand pressed to her forehead. Insisting she couldn't breathe, every guest turned to stare. My manager looked horrified. My career, 3 months of work, felt like it was collapsing in real time. Then something in me went completely still and clear. I walked down the stairs calmly. Phone already in hand. Call the police. I told the head of security. Criminal trespassing. Then I turned to the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption. These 2 are my estranged mother and sister. They've been harassing me for weeks after I declined to give them money. I have documented evidence and a pending restraining order. I appreciate your patience. An older gentleman in an expensive suit stepped forward, visibly unimpressed with my mother's performance. You're filing a police report. Immediately. Then I'd say you're handling this with remarkable professionalism. He turned to my mother and sister with open disgust. And several other guests actually applauded when security escorted them out. That man, Harold Bennett, stayed through the entire ordeal. then bought the house at full asking price before he left. My manager pulled me aside afterward. You did good. Vren. Really good. By the end of the week, I had 3 offers on the property. 2 of them above asking price. Sometimes the worst moment of your professional life becomes the moment people finally see exactly who you are. Hold on to that. A few weeks later, at the courthouse, a judge reviewed the doorbell footage, the police reports, and my sister's own recorded threats without saying a word until the end. This is clear harassment, he said. Temporary restraining order granted. I didn't feel triumphant walking out. I just felt light. Like a chain I'd been dragging my whole life had finally been cut. While packing for my move to a new condo, I found an old box in the back of my closet. A designer watch and a leather handbag. Gifts I'd bought years earlier hoping to buy my way into my parents' approval. I had never even given them. I drove the box to a local women's shelter instead. The coordinator gasped when she opened it. These will help someone walk into a job interview with confidence, she said. That's exactly what they're for. I told her. Christmas came a few weeks later at Aunt Ruth's small house, filled with the smell of glazed ham and pine needles. Not tension. No performance. Just a crooked tree covered in Josie's childhood ornaments and the sound of real laughter. After dinner, Uncle Walt led me out to his garage and handed me a large envelope. Inside were adoption papers. Adult adoption. You don't need to carry the name of people who never deserved you, he said, his voice rough with an emotion he rarely let show. Ruth and I want to make it official. You're already our daughter in every way that matters. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. We signed the papers at their kitchen table that night. Aunt Ruth crying openly. Josie hugging me so tightly I could barely breathe. Ren Elise Miller. This is the part of the story that always gets me. No matter how many times I tell it, chosen family is still family. Sometimes it's the truest kind there is. Driving home that night, I stopped at a red light and caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked the same on the outside, but everything underneath had changed. I started this chapter of my life holding a check for $2,140.16. And a heart hollowed out by years of quiet betrayal. I ended it with a protected career, a home that was truly mine, and a family that had chosen me as deliberately as I had chosen them. This wasn't about revenge. It was never about burning anything down. It was about building something honest and unshakable out of what was left behind, choosing love over bitterness, and finally, for the first time in almost 30 years, choosing myself. If this story meant something to you, or reminded you of your own chosen family, I'd genuinely love to hear about it. Thank you for spending this time with me.